Because I've seen like no blog posts.
Because I've seen like no blog
very
posts,
few blog posts, and
very few
no
blog posts,
video
and
reviews,
no video
of
reviews
Patch Schmatz's
of
Lizard
Patch
Radio. I
Schmatz's
thought I would take my
Lizard
Monday
Radio. I
musing
thought I would take my
and
Monday
do just
musing
that.
and do just that.
Before I do though, I've got to give a shout out to Book Riot and Liberty Hardy and Rebecca Shinsky, who turned me on to Lizard Radio on their podcast, All the Books. I'm the supplier, and this is a book review, which is something I don't do very often. So that's Lizard Radio. I can't get it to download, and there's all kinds of background images that are reflecting in the screen, so I'm not going to hold it up the entire time, but neat cover, right? So when I did my sticky note review of Lizard Radio, I said there was great world building, and that it was suspenseful, and that I borrowed it from the library, and I will be buying it soon, which is very true. I want a physical copy of it. If I ever teach a young adult literature class again, I will probably include Lizard Radio in at least one of the iterations of that class. So the world in Lizard Radio is very similar to something you would find in Orwell or Huxley, where the most prized, like, value or characteristic of a person is their conformity to what the government, or the Gov, has indicated is the norm. So the Gov ensures that people conform by sending them to camps, like the camp our main character goes to, the Crop Camp, which ensures that they have the training that is necessary for them to become a productive member of society. And while they're there, they have this other thing called the Blight hanging over their heads, where all of the people go who can't conform. It's like this lawless, gated community where all the bad people go. And, you know, nobody wants to go there. So there's lots going on in this novel, but to try and break it down shortly, Cavalli is our main character. By her mates at Crop Camp, she's called Lizard. She was admitted to Crop Camp early, after having been raised by an asolo, which is somebody in the community who doesn't marry. And that's atypical because people who are asolo don't usually get to raise kids. So at camp, Cavalli makes friends. She asks questions and rails against authority and joins the revolution, and, you know, is typically fairly badass. It's a lot more complicated than just that, and as it happens with novels of this type, there's one thing in particular that I want to talk about, and part of it comes from having just joined the PFLAG Board of Directors, like this past summer, in my town, and how we can use young adult literature to have to facilitate some of the tough conversations that the LGBT community needs to have. Well, I guess not just the LGBT community, people outside it as well. Anyway, so one of the things I purposely didn't mention about Lizard in the synopsis is that she is a bender, or rather a mid-range bender. And in this society, the children are given an assessment to determine their gender. If they score on one end, then they're X gender. If they score on the other end, they're Y gender. No pun intended with chromosomes and things. And if they score on the opposite side of the gender that they were assigned at birth, then they have to go through a transition. There is a range in the middle. They're called mid-range benders, and they get to decide for themselves whether or not they transition. Cavalli chooses not to transition and has to go through post-decision gender training to make sure that the way she acts is in accordance with the gender that she chose. Now, while I know it would have added to the momentum of the story, I really would have liked to see more of this training. I think it would be really interesting. Somebody needs to write the fanfic. I will totally read it. Anyway, so that's really where I thought that this novel was interesting. Real world, even within the transgender community, there's not a lot of conversation about people who are non-binary, so they don't fit into either the male role or the female role, as people who transition sometimes, not always, but sometimes do. So we tend to talk about binary gender, but Lizard exists somewhere in the in-between. And what conversations are we having about those people? Hello, there's a fly. So what about conversations about people who exist in the in-between, not really one or not really the other, or and both? What about the people whose identities don't fit squarely into one of those two boxes? What would we do? In our society, what would we do with people who would not be able to pass post-decision gender training? Because we don't currently have a blight, or do we? So I think we need to have conversations about social justice and the people in the in-between. And I think that Lizard Radio is a great addition to the texts we can use to have this conversation. Okay, I'm gonna quit now because I ran a little bit longer than I intended, but I want to know, before I go, even, it doesn't matter whether or not you've read the book, but I'm curious about what you guys have heard about people who exist in the in-between, but folks who are genderqueer or non-binary or gender fluid, and your experience in life or on the internet. I run in specific social circles that talk about these things, so I'm curious about what other people have heard. If you've read or are interested in reading Lizard Radio, also let me know in the comments, and I will see you there soon. Until then, I'm the Supplier wishing you happy reading. Don't forget to be awesome. Hello! Welcome to the In-Screen, wherein I tell you all about the places you can find me on the internet. My website is thebooksupplier.com, and you can find me at the Book Supplier at all of those places listed up in the corner, and I really hope I'm pointing in the right direction. Also, you can subscribe to the channel down here in this corner, and below you can leave comments. I like talking to people on the internet. Leave comments. Okay, I'm actually gonna get out of here now.